All right, and so you guys are just going to be hearing us talk through the game. This is Optix versus JZ, and I'm going to start by pulling up just some background into this. This is North. This is the game. This is the right game, right?
Yeah,
Optix.
this was our first game.
All right. Now, JZ bonked the Des Moines, or sorry, JZ banned the Des Moines, and BONKZ banned the Kléber.
I don't know. Bonk the Des Moines is pretty accurate.
Yes, yes, they bonked the Des Moines. And then they chose North, so you guys chose the Alpha Spawn. Now, do you feel like the Alpha Spawn is the stronger position?
Yes, I think Alpha Spawn in most maps is a stronger position.
I kind of noticed that too, actually, yeah.
You
So
you
what?
want to know the one that's egregious?
Yeah.
Islands of Ice.
Yes, that's my map. I knew it.
Go look at the win rate difference from this last COTS of teams that played north on that map and teams that
Mhm.
played south. It's I think like 67% win rate to the north team.
Yeah, Islands
It's
has a couple
insane.
of spots where there are towns that push the people that are camping behind islands off of them, so they can be hit easier from plunging fire. Um, but okay, well, let's take a look at this game, and I'm curious for this side, what makes the northern part of North the better side? Do you know, sir?
So the main thing is the rocks at B give you more cover for your radar cruiser.
Okay.
Aside from that, there's other things you can kind of do with it. It's a little bit more comfortable contesting with like a daring, the B cap from the north. At least my personal opinion on that is that it's
Okay.
better from the north. And then on the A cap, if you look at the big island, it's from the north side. It's angled in a way where you can stick like a Kremlin or a St. Vincent or something into the cap if you need
And
to,
it's very
and
hard to
it'd be
see it and hit it.
mostly safe and it's almost impossible to dig out without
Yep.
a really concerted effort. Whereas like you don't get that luxury from the south.
So the same problem we were just talking about with Islands of Ice, the southern part of this radar island here, because this little bit sticks out, it's very difficult for cruisers to hide here, because you have to back up farther. And if you back up too far, you get shot from the channel, and then all the way like at the Charlie 9 area. So that makes sense. I have seen like Z52s do really well on the southern part here, but I think that's more of a function of the team not having a good shot on them as opposed to, you know, the map.
Yeah, if you
So,
have like a Z52 or a Z42, the south side's pretty workable as far as like Hydro
mhm.
DD goes. But the DD can scurry away into that little like nook, whereas a
Yep.
cruiser really can't.
So guys, we are watching. This is Obi-Wan Kenobi's replay. So he's over there in the Shimakaze. Because of that, he doesn't show up on the screen. That's just a replay bug. But Optix, if you would please, can you? I'm gonna pause it for a sec. Can you tell us a little bit about your lineup? Why you guys are choosing the ships that you guys are choosing, that sort of thing? Hey,
So
Jaquama.
we prefer having DMs on this map, but they got clapped out unfortunately. So
They went to horny
we
jail, didn't
default.
they?
Yep, we default to Salem's here.
Okay.
Generally, this for most of the regional stage,
Hmm.
we played really heavy on A, and we made A our
Okay.
push. So once we shifted into internationals and really the last games that we played in the regional brackets, we started pushing on 9-10 a little bit more. I feel like
Okay.
it didn't work as well as our A push did,
Hmm.
because sort of like everybody kind of pushes 9-10. Um,
That seems to be the commonality that we see in North here. We see most people like to go 910 for some odd
Yeah.
reason.
So I feel like our setup on A, where we take ground on A and take A,
Hmm.
was more successful. I don't know if that would have held true because, like, I mean, the deeper you go into the tournament, the better teams you're facing as well. So
Yeah. Okay.
it could just be a function of better teams feel like it's not as like effective. So
Okay.
it it could be that. It could be also that just it's much more of a pain if you're both pushing into each other on I-10. It's just kind of a like a drag out knuckle fight, you know?
It very much is, yeah. So, and Chukwama, by the way, you're welcome to join in the Discord if you want. I'll put the link up again. If you don't want to, it's all good. Stats bloke. Oh, hell. Welcome aboard, Stats. Guys, welcome. Guys, we are taking a look at King of the Sea replay. This is BONKZ versus JZ. JZ being the #1 China team. This was last weekend. Was this Sunday or Saturday? Remember?
I believe this was Sunday.
Sunday. Okay.
Yeah, for sure Sunday. It was our first game on Sunday.
Gotcha. All right, well, welcome aboard, guys. I'll do the intro a little bit, but we're in the middle of doing the replay. Want to get through it, so y'all are welcome to follow and join our giveaway. Exclamation point ticket gets you in. As we're looking at, I don't know what the hell we're looking at. It's stats. Doing stats things. All right. So. Optix, can you tell us a little bit about, besides you talked about the Salem and their positioning and stuff, you've got the Vermont, which is America. We've seen him before on this map do crazy things. Can you tell me a little bit about what you guys are thinking about the enemy lineup at this point, the JZ lineup?
Yeah, so the first thing we kind of see is, like, they have double Salem, so anytime that you see a Des Moines daring, Salem daring, something like that pairing on this map, it's almost always going to be at B, because daring plus Des Moines class cruiser is sort of the minimum that you have to commit to a B cap in order to not take it, not lose it, right? You're just playing to essentially hold, and if you don't really play to hold there, whatever else you're doing on this map has to develop so much faster that it's almost not viable.
Sure.
I think at this level, you'll rarely see teams not play to at least hold B.
Well, and even you guys, you've got
off B. Yeah.
You've got a daring and a Salem there too. So.
Yep. It's almost this like game of chicken on B always on this map, where it's like, you know, you get a cheeky little contest and then you back off because you get radared, and then, you know, it's B's very much just playing for a mistake.
Oh yeah.
You never really assume that you're gonna get it, but you can kind of safely assume that you're not going to lose it as well.
Yeah. Now I've played clan battles competitive, you know, where you're here, and way back with Supremacy League, obviously those are tier 8s and stuff. But it's the same process. It's this just, you're sitting there, you're dumping torps, you're smoking, they're dumping torps, they're smoking, and like Optix said, you're very much hoping that your torps hit something and you don't hit their torps, and that's what it comes down to. And you're just waiting. It's probably the most boring place to be in a game in KOTS. But somebody's got to do it.
I very often play that daring in KOTS, and it's actually one of the positions you have to pay the most attention to.
Oh, I should have. I meant from the Salem's perspective, from the cruiser's perspective. Yeah, no, the destroyer, yeah, you're going all over the place.
The daring player yells at you to press Y, then you press Y, and that's your life for the first like 10-12 minutes of the game.
Yes, exactly. The other thing is, when I see a Salem, I oftentimes expect to see them up the 9-10 line, because with that super heal, it can work to basically out attrition, you know, the enemy on the other side of that push. So, were you guys thinking that both Salems are at B, or were you thinking that one is going up the 9-10 line?
No, so the immediate thought with that daring and Salem pairing I was talking about is that they're putting that on B, which frees up the other Salem to probably be on 9-10 with the Marseille. Whenever you see Marseille, like the first thought is they're shoving this somewhere, and it's usually either up to 1 line or up to 10 line. And here it probably makes more sense for that combination on 9-10, but you know, we're kind of expecting it, but not banking on it, if that makes sense.
Of course.
Like, it's not going to affect what we're going to do at this point. But I mean, as far as like the lineups go, you also see a Shima, which again could play kiting on 9-10, or it could play kiting on 1-2.
Sure.
We play our Shima on this map whenever we push 9-10 a little differently, and we try to use it more aggressively.
Okay.
So it's a Swift Shima, and if they don't have a French DD, which in this case they did,
Marceau,
yeah, that Shima's playing off his RPF, right? He sees that the Marceau is most likely going 9-10, and he's got a huge conceal gap on him, so he feels safe enough to go and just get into the cap immediately.
Well, so I mean, we've seen, it's interesting because this COTS, we've seen fewer of that YOLO rush into the C cap, right? So instead, they're like coming around the south and going, going to the 910 line instead of going into C, which works out in favor for obviously Obi-Wan because he can just kind of sit there and wait and get the free cap.
I think he does get radared off though.
Gotcha.
I
Okay.
don't know if we get this cap, or I don't think we get this cap early. But I mean, it's always worth a shot when you think you can take it. I think because it puts a lot of pressure on the other team,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're going like whoever wins 910 essentially gets control of the C cap in this game.
Right.
But in order to get control of the C cap, you have to kind of push up past like the E and F line. Um, so if one team is ticking points on C until
Mm-hmm.
you get to the EF line and you're holding them back for as long as possible, that's easily 200, 300 points in your favor that they have to overcome. And it's just a lot of
Mm-hmm.
pressure.
Right.
That usually leads to them having to push a different cap. Um, and that opens people up for mistakes as well. So like, we don't mind
Okay.
if they want to push into A into Gearing Brisbane, right?
Well, gearing Brisbane is a pain in the butt to deal with, right? So that makes sense. I know from last time watching you guys on this map against No Cap, Murica is in a position to support the 910 line with cross shots, and
Yep.
he's gonna hit those shots if he's given them. Obviously, Mosfa Salem, Kremlin, you're gonna be really hard, really, to take out any of those ships. The Mosfa is the first to fall in that situation unless the Salem gets overmatched. But okay, well let's go to normal speed and let's continue the replay. At any moment, Optics, feel free to tell me to stop. I see what you mean about the radar there. Let's take a look at. Let's zoom into Obi-Wan's perspective.
Yeah, so the Marshal got pretty far up and was able to get really good damage on him, but I mean, having a low Shima, not the worst thing in the world.
If he's running Adrenaline Rush, which I'm sure Obi-Wan is.
He might not be actually.
That was
We
that
we
was okay.
we have one build for Shima that we use that does not take it in favor of Torps.
Well, I can answer that for you in just a moment. I can look up everybody's builds, and of course, Obi-Wan's is the very bottom of the list. That's just how it works, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna pause this for a sec. We're gonna go to our build viewer screen, and this is what Obi's running. So we know he's running the 12s. He's running the legendary upgrade. You notice that his torpedoes took forever to make that turn, and that's because of the legendary unique upgrade. You spam torps out quickly, but turning those torpedoes is a pain. Everything else is what you'd expect here, and he is, you're right, not running Adrenaline Rush. So being low damage there, low hit point, isn't going to boost his ability to spam torpedoes any better. That's unfortunate. But he's got to fill the tubes, which makes sense. If he's literally just trying to be a torpedo bot, this is going to have more use over Adrenaline Rush until you get below 50% hit points.
Yeah, the calculation is basically like, uh, I still always want to call it TAE, but
Yeah, I know, right?
yeah, fill the tubes is going to help you always, whereas like AR only helps you in the games where you get below 50%.
Right. Right. So if you go around the whole game and you never take damage, it doesn't really matter. You don't care.
Here,
So,
the priority for the Shim is just pumping out torpedoes and having that RPF and Swift.
yep.
On the builds that we don't use Swift, then we like obviously taking RPF, or I mean, yeah, RPF and AR.
Right. Right. RPF being radio location. We call it RPF because the original name for it was radio position finding, and then we never dropped from that.
There's a lot of skills in the game that still like get called by these old things, or you hear
Yeah.
people like refer to clan battles as clan wars.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So in any case, and Statsbloke said he was defrosting his freezer in IRL stream. So congratulations, Stats, on the defroster. So all right, obviously there's no chance to take C at this point. Obi's quite low. We know the Stalingrad is there. He's got the radar. We know the Marceau is over 910 line. We see the Marsilli. We see the Kremlin. You obviously are expecting a Salem to be heading that direction too. So, what's the plan now, Optics?
Yeah, so I mean, we're already expecting a sort of slug it out fight on the 910 line. The Shima was always going to be on 910 spotting for this push, but because he gets to C and out to 910 so much faster, that's why we divert him to C cap first.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's just going to be materializing the push and getting, like, you see the Salem and the monster pathing super safely.
Yeah,
Just
and
because of
now.
that Marceau always likes to go into 910 or 1-2 like Marseille.
Mm-hmm.
Super confusing, right? Marceau.
Yeah, I know,
Um,
right? That's why I put it. We just call it the Marsili. It's easier to remember that way.
ah,
Although, frankly, both of them are pretty Marsili. But yeah, this is smart to go behind the island. We've seen a lot, especially in clan battles. A lot of players make the mistake of going in front of the island because they feel like they need to get to a certain spot as quickly as possible. And that's not the case in COTS, especially, and also clan battles. It's more important that you get to your position safely so that you can do what you're supposed to do from that position. So,
yeah, and you've pointed this out before, where you can go. It's very normal in a COTS game to go 5-10 minutes without a kill.
oh,
It's
yeah,
a lot more
yeah.
static than a clan battle season.
Mm-hmm. Sure, but I've had clan battles too where I'm just like, guys, are we gonna get a kill anytime soon? Like, what's happening? So, it can go both ways.
Yeah.
Weekdays, that's right, Snow Mongoose. Hello. All right, let's continue the replay then, and let's see what we can see. There's the Marceau's torpedoes. So Marceau got pretty far up. He's probably now an Echo 10 behind that island, right?
Yeah, he's way out there.
Sure. So now you've got the ability to, at least Obi's got the ability. He can start torping down this channel, get the Marsili, but my guess is he's gonna go a little bit farther over to put himself in a position to deal with that Kremlin. There's the Marceau.
Yeah, so the Shima's job here is mainly going to be pushing off that Marceau, keeping him spotted, and then make sure that the Kremlin Marseille can't just like super push up the 9 line and then get into the channel or like ram out your Kremlin or anything like that.
Sure, sure. Now we actually saw this exact same strat in BONKZ No Cap. You guys ran the same plan. Maybe it was Des Moines instead of Salem in the middle. That was Fratstar there. But I'm recognizing these positions, these early positions. And
Yeah,
everything.
the 910 push from that other match, the elements of the 910 push are the same.
Yeah.
I believe we changed what we did on A.
I mean, you're Gearing and Brisbane. We can't really see them, even if I were to look over there, move over there. But I'm gonna pause for a second. Some important information just popped up. Y'all see it, chat? Montana. Optics. When you see a Montana moving like that, what is your thinking?
Free space.
Can you expand on that, please?
Um, so first of all, the fact that they were able to take A that quickly, the indication was essentially, all right, we know there's 4 on 910. We know that Stalingrad is on the 7 line. We're almost 100% sure that the Daring and Salem are on B. I believe you saw some RPF pings there before the Montana popped up as well, so that just kind of confirms it. So the only things left were the Montana and the Shima. The fact that we
Right.
hadn't seen Montana kind of let us get really aggressive on the space we were taking in A. And then once you see the Montana that far off, like that's just free map space. And if you're in something like a smoked up Brisbane, you can just walk into that space. And if the Shima does decide to turn around and push you, get smoked up by the gearing instantly, and then you radar, and then the Shima dies or loses most of his HP. So
Right.
there's just,
So
I think like you can look at WoW's in a lot of ways as a game of taking and denying space. So whenever you just have space available to you, even if it doesn't serve an immediate purpose as far as like whether the Brisbane and Gearing think they're going to be able to kill the Montana or not, right? It still makes sense to take that space so that they can't have it.
Sure.
It compresses the map for them and makes it harder for them to be able to play other positions. So, for example, if the Brisbane Gearing here get down to, let's say, G3, G4,
Mm-hmm.
the Salem that is playing on B is now in a really awkward position because he's pinched between our Salem, our Brisbane, and the Vermont's probably going to be looking at him as well. So his
Absolutely.
ability to leave is super limited depending on which island he's playing.
Well, and I'm glad you're bringing that up because that's I've talked about this many times with COTS, and when you see, oh my God, Kermit, when you see um, that battleship moving, that does absolutely, like you said, you've got all that open space. Um, Chukwama, yeah, the opening deployment of JZ was exactly what you expected. There's only so many ways that they're going to use those ships, and as Optix said, you know, this is what we think happening. So the thing is that Montana leaving means your team can absolutely wrap around. And what's interesting is normally, in order to take map space, in order to grab real estate and push, you trade hit points in order to do that, right? You take a random torpedo or something like that. Right now, so far, I mean, I'm not even seeing any red torpedoes, but you would expect the enemy Shima to be screening the Montana in some way, shape, or form, right?
Yeah. I mean, the big thing with the Shima, like a lone Shima in this case, is can you see what torpedoes he has? He's got the 12s, right?
It's got
Yeah.
the 12s.
Okay, so
Yes.
he's got 12s. There's not a whole lot you can do with that against a Brisbane that's pushing you.
No way.
You're essentially hoping to torp out at the very edge of his radar and your torp range.
Yep.
The chances of getting run over by that and getting caught in the radar is very high. You'll never be able to push back into that. So your only choice as a Shima in this scenario is probably just run. Um, I don't even know where you would run to. Maybe going towards like B. Towards
Honestly,
3B.
honestly, the only thing that I would do, and in Shima, and it's risky, but at this point, you don't have A. I think the Shima needs to run to the 1 line. And it's risky because if he gets detected or whatnot, obviously he can be run down.
Yeah.
But
Well,
going
the gearing, and the Brisbane here in this case have RPF, right? So if they see their RPF
correct.
is not shifting towards the middle of the map and it's shifting
Mhm.
in one line instead, they have the
Mhm.
option of just running straight down, and then he's just pinched.
Right. No, I understand. That's the hard part about playing the Shima at this point is, like you said, if he goes just to B cap, which most people do because of what you just said, right? He just goes to B cap. He's kind of useless. I mean, he can try dumping torpedoes through the B cap, but it's not really going to get anything for the team. They're probably not going to get a kill on a Daring or the Salem, unless you guys, for whatever reason, go into the cap. But there's no reason for you to go into the cap right now.
Uh-oh.
You've got
Foreshadowing.
A. You've got A. They don't have C. They don't have B. You're getting points. They are not. Kermit is extremely low. That is a concern.
Yeah, that's
But
our
even
biggest
then,
concern right now. And this
but
this is the downside of having to wrap the Salem and Massa so high while the Kremlin goes straight to that rock, is you're suffering in that Kremlin until
Mhm.
until the Salem and Moscow get into position and can like take some fire off of you.
Yeah.
That it's just a miserable experience.
Oh, absolutely. And Chukwama says that you guys knew from scouting that they play Shima at A. So you guys were looking at Jay-Z's replays, especially on North, and you kind of get an idea of what they do. Sure.
Yep.
And that makes sense anyways. What else are you going to do with the Shima, like we just kind of discussed? The only thing that the Montana could do is literally just hit the brakes and draw them in closer so that it spoofs the radio location. But that's hard to do. That's a lot to ask a Montana player to do. So I instinctively went over to Murica in the Vermont. I wanted to know what he was doing, and we're gonna follow this salvo that he fired.
Looking for Salems.
He's looking for Salem's, and I was gonna mention too, the Kremlin is now dark, but look at where the Kremlin was. The Kremlin is broadside to Chukwama's shots here. So this salvo is 30. get on him here. Up. 32.9 kilometer is this shot, guys. 32.9 kilometer.
See, I
And
think
he's
he's
looking...
just getting cheeky here, and he wants to break his record from that no cap game.
Maybe, but here's the deal. Especially like you were talking about on the 910 line, because of the fact that it's a war of attrition, you see a lot of ships that get stuck and they stop at these islands thinking that they're safe, and then all of a sudden America just comes in with these shells and dunks them. So let's see if that happens here. We're following the front 2 turrets. He hasn't fired the rear 2 turrets just yet. Chukwama uses, from previous replays, he uses the steering gears so that he's able to turn his turrets quicker. Or not Chukwama, sorry, Murica. Does that. In the meantime, Obi-Wan is continuing to dump torpedoes towards the Kremlin. You can see this is, I think this is a Salem salvo that's hitting the Kremlin right there. And let's take a look at what Pulo does here in the Salem. Of course, he disappears, so we don't really know if he's going to get a big hit or not, but I think it's worth following these shells the entire time over. Even
Yeah, like
Pat and Slam, thanks for the follow. Sorry, go
Like I
ahead.
mentioned in the no cap game, even if you're not getting good hits, the fact that the Salem player in this case has to consciously worry about getting shot from 30 kilometers
Mm-hmm.
and knows that he can't just freely back up,
Mm-hmm.
it just makes that position so much worse to play.
Yep. So he actually shot. All right. So he actually shot at the Kremlin. The Salem might be outside of his range. I don't, off the top of my head, know the Vermont's range max with the plane up and all that. Oh, wait. Wait, nope. I'm sorry. Here's the salvo. It's still coming, guys. Chukwama just got slapped there from the Kremlin, looked like. Here's Murica's rear 2 turrets. Yeah, he sits you, yeah. I see that. Alright, so here's the island. Salem is not detected. What we're going to look for is those explosions to indicate hitting a ship versus splashes to indicate hitting water. And it's just behind because Pulo moved farther forward. Pulo took a torpedo.
Ooh, that was actually really close.
Yeah, Pulo took a torpedo and he's actually flooding right now and healing. Might as well if he's got a super heal. So that's what the torpedo salvo was from. That torpedo hit and flood was. Okay. Let's speed things up a little bit and let's watch the rear shells hit. Naomi's in a like that's kind of scary to see because that forces Chukwama, of course, to move farther forward.
Also, looking at a different part of the map here, you can see how oppressive that smoked up Brisbane can be with that daring position where he's at. Like the Shima and the daring are all just getting pushed out by that radar coming in. Even if like the radar's not up, you know it's in that smoke.
Oh, absolutely.
You have to respect the edge of the smoke, not the edge of where you think the radar might be.
Well, I mean, you gotta play it based off the worst case scenario, which is that ship is right there at that radar spot. Stalingrad moving up, so we're gonna look at your view here as Obi-Wan gets detected by Stalingrad radar and says, "Well, crap," and Kremlin is looking right at him. Obi stops here though, probably trying to prevent the Stalingrad from having a follow-up shot. Look at the Marseille.
Yeah,
What
this
is
was
he
our
doing?
first. If you don't count the Kremlin getting farmed out, this was our first uh-oh moment. Like we have to react to something.
Mm-hmm. I can see that. I can see that. Because Marseille's the problem with the Marseille's position, right, is that he's only got 2 places to go. One is through the channel, one is to continue north of the channel. Chukwama is very low though. Chukwama's forced forward.
We got him killed.
Well, the Kremlin was able to push up because your Kremlin had to stop and get behind the island, right? So because of that, he was able to push up. That was actually a very aggressive push. I'm surprised to see the Kremlin make that push, frankly. But that forced Chukwama to move forward into the enemy Salem.
Yeah, with our Kremlin as low as he was, we didn't really have a good way to deal with our Kremlin pushing up that far.
No. No. And that's the thing, too, with KOTS is it's all about, like you said, a lot of it is board control. And you get that board control with the positioning of the ships, the ability to prevent enemy ships from moving to certain spaces. That's what you're trying to do. It's like if you're playing chess, you're trying to check the enemy at every place. So the Marsili actually goes up and then decides to bow towards the 910 line. Man, they really want this 910 line, don't they?
Yeah.
Now, the problem with that is you can see Tester is in a really bad spot. Yeah, getting smacked right there, getting some Citadel slaps. Tester's in the unenviable position of basically having to bow into either a Marsili or a Salem. He can try to do both, but he goes much farther, and then the Kremlin's got him.
In retrospect, moving the Salem in closer to the Kremlin was not the play. We should have just kept them out super wide and then ran down at the other Salem.
Yeah, I'm surprised that you guys had to move up like this. What was the reason? Do you know?
I think he just wanted to try to protect the Kremlin.
Okay. I mean, fair enough. There's this radar detecting the Kremlin. Now, your Brisbane gearing have broken off, and they are reversing. And you're daring. Murica does what Murica does best, and just slaps the Marseille.
Yeah, it cost us a Mosfa though.
You see that? Well, sure, because the Salem and the Kremlin are back. There's nothing else for them to focus on, so they're just gonna shoot the Mosfa till it dies.
It was actually a Marseille reload booster that got most of his health.
The Mosfas? Okay.
Yep. And then after that, it was just quick work for the Salem to pop out and DPM him down.
Yeah, because it looked like he was hitting the Salem, but okay, fair enough.
Yeah, the first couple of shots were on the Salem, and then he got a good shot on the Mosfa, and then he died.
You guys pushed when you didn't need to, really, on that 910 area.
I mean, the big thing was we had WinCon if we would have just kept, because we got A long before they got C.
And that's what I mean, right? Exactly.
If we hadn't lost the Salem in B for no reason, like again, in retrospect, that was a bad thing to shove him down. We could just sit here and trade all day and take up points faster than they do. But because we lost the cruiser, that put us at a point disadvantage, and we're at 1-1 cap. So that meant we had to do something on 910.
Well, yeah, now you got to make something work. And Rookie Gamer, thank you.
Losing the Salem at B also lets them have the cap, because our daring has to leave as soon as that Salem dies, because he doesn't have the radar protection.
Well, he doesn't have the friend, and you can see he's quite low as well. And my alt key thing doesn't work. I'll answer your question, Gamer, after the replay is done. So please feel free to re-ask it in just a few moments, okay? Montana takes another torp. He's quite low. There he is. Shooting at your Vermont. What's going on with Frat? Okay. So the Brizzy gearing is continuing to work through.
Also, despite everything that's happened, like if you look at it, the point totals are still really close, and the HP totals are also really close.
Yes, they are.
So we know we have options here still.
And I also kind of like the Shimakaze's position there, because on the I-4 line, he can keep dumping torps north to try to mess with the gearing Brisbane push.
Yeah, it at least has the ability to potentially push that Brisbane out of smoke.
Yeah. And obviously, if the Shimakaze knows that he's located, okay, he knows that they're probably coming after him. This is a very aggressive position for Murica, though.
Yeah, he is like the healthiest piece we have left, though, so that's kind of what we have to work with at this point.
Sure. Oh, and a wild Salem appears right behind him.
Yeah, that was a little unexpected, but
and
welcome.
And hold on, I gotta move over to the other side of the map. This is something that we can do quicker in real time, but with the replay, it takes a while. We have ourselves a daring slap fight. Although I do like that Todd Howards was brought back north to help, and you can see that Fratstar's Brisbane is also assisting. So Lao Pao should die here. Should being the operative word. The real question is, will Nagato lose his ship in doing so, the daring? Right? Is it a trade or is it just a kill? And then, of course, the other question is, what's going to happen with the Salem push? But we know the daring stuff's going to be decided earlier. I just want to see what Murica's turrets are looking at. Oh, yeah, he got completely caught by surprise. All right, let's go back and take a look at the daring slap fight. 3-on-1.
Their daring, I think, doesn't shoot a lot of AP here. I think if he just shoots AP and commits to it, I think he takes our daring with him at the very least.
I would agree. It doesn't look like he really... I think he was just... Oh. I think he was just surprised to see it. And then, you know...
Yeah, I don't...
kind of feel like both darings were shocked.
Well, since our daring was low, I don't think he expected our daring to take that fight. But
that's what I mean, right?
Where we had to take that risk, so we did.
All right, I'm grabbing a screenshot of Murica just slapping the Salem in the face, because that was glorious. All he did, literally, Murica, was just turn casually his ship and the turrets, because he's got the propulsion module. But doing so puts him broadside to the Stalingrad, and possibly the Kremlin shots too, although I think he's too far past now. Nope. There's a Kremlin shot. Oof. There goes the Kremlin. Your Kremlin.
Yeah, at this point, the game's just kind of devolving into all kinds of craziness going on. Like, you saw the Salem took a torpedo and finally died.
He took 2, yeah.
That's our Shima to come back and check the Kremlin without any worry about the Marceau or the Salem.
Yeah, Obi-Wan did a really nice job with his torpedoes there. You can see the value of just dumping torpedo after torpedo after torpedo. Murica now forced to turn northward, which makes sense because he doesn't want to show broadside to the Stalingrad. I say that as he starts turning pretty heavily here. Probably trying to get his front guns off.
We at this point, the Salem has shots as well, so we're just trying to get him off the board as soon as possible.
Of course. And your daring is able to walk in to be scot-free now.
Yeah, whenever you get to sort of this point in a match, there's so many things going on at once. Like, a lot of the interactions between enemy ships and your ships turn into, okay, you have to at least trade.
Yes. And that's what I was talking about earlier with that daring, right? The daring engagement there. Jay-Z needed to get a trade, and they didn't.
Yep. The last, in game time, like the last 3 minutes or so, is just a back and forth of trading ships.
Well, I'm hovering over here for a sec because the Shimakaze was spotted for a moment. Todd Howards is slowing down. I don't know Fratstar's radar situation, but I know that's what you guys really want to get off the board, of course. Salem goes down. Tester's Salem goes down. Stalingrad is quite low, but still alive. And Murica is also low, but still alive. Dealing with the Kremlin. Alright, there's the radar. That catches the Shimakaze out. So obviously everybody's shooting the Shima, sure. And people, like even Battleship Nagato is shooting at the Stalingrad, which makes sense. And then Murica now has to deal with the Kremlin as well. Shimakaze down south didn't die to in the radar. That's okay. That could be a big problem.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but they still can't really do much. I mean, even with the radar down, you can't just run into Brisbane smoke.
No, but what I'm getting at is at this point in the game, every ship alive matters.
Right. The point situation is okay in our favor right now. Obviously would have loved to get the Shima kill, but as long as like the Stalingrad turned into a trade, which at that point we kind of were pretty certain it would be a trade.
Oh, look at the Montana turning back into these torps. That'll seal the deal for him.
Yeah, you love to see it.
And that means Shimakaze, Kremlin, and Marceau are all that's left. They are having a party together in the same grid square. What are they up against? 3 low health destroyers and a half health Brisbane.
I
You've
mean,
got the
this part of the mini map kind of illustrates what we talked about at the very beginning of the game of just how much space that Brisbane and Gearing were able to take. Like they essentially took half the map on their own.
well, because of the fact that they were able to get all the way around. Jay-Z's options continue to be reduced, right?
Yep.
So
Like
there's
that
a real
Kremlin can go one of two ways, right? If you go south, then he's cross-torped between, Daring Gearing and Brisbane torpedoes, which
Mhm.
is what he elected to do. He could have gone north, but it would have taken a lot more time and maybe doesn't even get into the B cap. But the Daring is still just waiting around the corner for him to single line him if he has to and trade there. And since we
Sure.
have two caps, like trades do not work in their favor. They work in ours.
Absolutely. And obviously, radio location pointing at the Shima. At this point, there's no reason to bump with the Shima. You don't care. Focus the Kremlin, get him down, torp the hell out of him. Because, I mean, Kremlin's only choice is to go into B and pray that he doesn't just die. But that's gonna happen. Like you can already see it, guys. He can't even really slow down and dodge much because look at the time that's left. 1 minute and 45 on the timer, but reality is because you've got the caps and the points, the game's over much quicker than that.
Yeah, I mean,
So
being able to trade that Salem out was, or I mean, the Stalingrad out was huge.
sure. I mean that Salem dying to Murica just in the face. I mean, really, that's what did it, right? That's what allowed everything to just unravel for Jay Z.
Yep.
Nice dodge by the Kremlin, though.
That's kind of the story of BCAP, right? Like we lost our Salem early, which gave them control of BCAP for essentially free.
Mm-hmm.
Then they lost their Salem at B, and that just gave it back to us.
Yep. And now you can see the glory that is 12-kilometer range torpedoes from that Brisbane. And he can get up close and he can fire them. Now, with the Kremlin turning around, sure, they probably won't hit. But you guys don't care. I mean, look at the score. 996. You're going to win in like 3 seconds anyways. Murica basically carried that game with the clutch shots on the Salem and the Marseille. I mean, I would agree with you there. Here's our replay render.
I think even more importantly than that was just him being able to guarantee that Stalin kill, like I said.
Oh, sure. That Stalin, I mean, if Murica died before that Stalin, that's pretty much GG for you guys, right? Because OB then can't play anywhere near. He's gonna have to play farther out. Yeah.
Like he's just stuck because he can't go. He has to stay on 910, and that's where the Marceau was. Like just runs them down anyway.
Right.
He has no support, nothing.
Right. Exactly. So we're taking a look at your replay render, and there's not too much really to glean. I'm gonna drop that. And you guys, I saw the gearing dump torpedoes due south. Makes sense. But I'm curious to see if there are many torpedoes spotted over at A. You know, when I was talking to Obi-Wan, he of course wanted to be here. Um, and he said he really wanted to talk about the Jay-Z game. And he was disappointed I told him we were doing this one. And then I think he realized we were doing this one. He meant the other Jay-Z game because you guys lost to them in the next game. And, you know, basically by his account, you should have won. Oh.
Yeah, we had that game sealed, and then mistakes. They capitalized on ours, and I mean, if you
Yeah.
look at the map at maybe 15 minutes in or whatever, you would have just never assumed that we'd lose that game.
Sure. Speaking of which, I just saw Fratstar get smacked in the face from that Montana and that Brizzy. It's a good thing he's got a super heal. Wow. He went too far forward too quickly, got detected by the Shima, and Montana followed suit.
That is the downside of Brisbane. Really squishy.
You like tanking without Citadel, SAT? Here comes that Salem around the corner. Casual hard left turn. Bye-bye. But you can see all the pain Murica took for that shot. That basically sealed his deal.
I mean, if you isolate his last two fights there, he essentially took 2v1.
Yeah.
Which is just huge.
That Salem came out really far out. The enemy Salem, Patton? Yeah, I mean, I don't think he was expecting to get blapped like that. I think he was expecting, okay, I'll take one hit, I'll use my super heal, I'll keep shooting, we'll pow the Montana down. I mean, I understand that that thinking, but yeah.
That kind of encompasses like the level of play that you're at this in these matches, where it's like if you make a mistake, it will get punished.
And the crazy thing is, random battles, like that's not a mistake, because chances are you're probably not gonna get one-shotted by a Vermont in that situation. The Vermont is probably going to be tunnel visioned on, you know, the Kremlin or the Stalingrad because he knows he has to get that kill. But as soon as that Salem shows up, you see he immediately responded, said, "Nope, I'm just going to wipe you off the face of this earth." And the Salem didn't even seem to really try dodging much. It looked like he just kind of slowed down and said, "Well, crap."
I mean, I think his only option there was to reverse, and it just didn't happen fast enough.
Well, that's what I mean. Like,
You know what? Now that I think about it, America's little turret traverse slot 3 thing might have actually made the difference of getting that kill and not.
No, you're right. That in combination with the rudder shift mod that he runs, is he's able to get those turrets on target as quickly as possible because of those two factors. Although I don't think he's running it. Let me take a look. I don't think he's running the turret traverse mod one. He wasn't in the other game. Take a look. Yeah, his slot 3 is artillery plotting room.
Oh, okay.
Because, you know, he likes to do the sniper thing. So, yeah, it's the steering gears that saved him, right? Because he got his rudder over that much faster. But yeah, you guys can see what happens when certain board pieces get allowed to push to a certain position. That Kremlin being allowed to push farther forward got the Salem out, your Salem out, Chukwama. The Marseille pushing up, right? Basically punched a hole in a lot of you guys. See, there's the Mosfet. Let's see.
I don't like thinking back on it like from their perspective. I
There it
wonder
is.
if they think pushing that Marseille was a mistake or if it was a good thing to do.
I mean, it got the Moskva down. It forced
It got
everybody
the
to
Mosfet, it
react.
got damage on the Salem, but I think that piece was more important somewhere else.
I mean, the problem, frankly, was Murica, right? Because of
Yeah.
his position, the Marseille was forced to give him a broadside or give Kremlin, Moskva, Salem a broadside. He came out too far.
Like I think
But
they're just in a better position to win that game if they don't make that play.
sure.
Because essentially like the Salem on 910, the calculation is essentially we lose a Mosfet, they lose a Salem, but they also lose a Marseille on top of that.
Right. Right. And I gotta say, like, the problem with the Marseille is, and in order to get the shot that they needed him to have on the Salem, the Moskva, and the Kremlin, he has to pull out too far. Um, it would have been a different situation if I think that if he didn't have to pull out that far, right? He just wouldn't have gotten slapped off the face of the earth. Um, and then that Montana, I don't know. I think that Montana's turn in at the end there to get slapped by those torpedoes. Just that hurts because you
Yeah.
know you're gonna get torpedoed. So why turn in like that? I don't.
I mean, double capped, down ships, down points. That you don't really have another option, I don't think.
Yeah, the only other option is just to get aggressive. So I appreciate that they did that, I suppose, but I don't know. It just hindsight being 2020, of course. I just feel like
Yep.
why wouldn't you just nose into the smoke, knowing you're gonna take one or two torpedoes that way instead of like all of them? You know, might help dodge some things, anyways. But regardless, I mean, you guys got a win. It was a messy win, but it was a win.
Yeah.
I I wonder, does your Kremlin have to get up to that island as quickly as possible? Delta 9 Island, you know?
Maybe not. Um, the problem is like, say we hold him back on the D8 island instead, and
Yeah.
then push him up later. There's a chance that if they're already positioned, he just never gets to that island.
Mm-hmm. If you get the Marceau up the 9-10 line, all the way at the border, he just torp slaps on the side. It's just, oh, right, you know what? You know what?
We could have smoked him up to the island.
Yes! That's exactly what I was just going to say. Right there, a smoke from Obi-Wan, I think would have been, I mean, they already know Obi-Wan's there, right? Because he's being radared by the Stalingrad. So, I think a smoke right there would have been very helpful. Oh well.
They did set up to punish that Kremlin pretty well. Usually a Kremlin going to that island does not take that much damage.
So they did their homework on you guys just as you did your homework on them. Because I would agree with you. I mean, at one point, remember, I turned over, I'm like, oh my god, he's on triple fires.
And it wasn't any huge hits that got him down. It was just the constant fires.
Yeah.
I was actually spectating his stream through this thing, and I'm just like watching. I'm just like, oh my god, it's like fire after fire after fire.
Well, and that's one thing that you guys can do, right? You can be streaming to your Discord or wherever you guys are playing, and then other people who aren't in the game can be watching, and that's very handy because there were times where I would be watching somebody, I would be like, so and so, use your heal, because they might not have noticed their heal was available, or
Yeah.
DCP or Hydro or something like that. Um, I mean, you can go really crazy and have people that are sitting there with a stopwatch and they're timing like the Stalingrad radar. Okay, next radar's up in whatever time, and then they call it out. Okay, 30 seconds till the next Stalingrad radar or something, right? Um, there's a lot of you can do, and those are like the super big brain things that we don't really see.
Yeah, we found a lot of value having somebody watching one of our battleship streams usually on every game.
Mm-hmm.
Just to have that like extra sort of bird's eye view input where you don't have to worry about using your own ship. You can focus solely on the macro of the game.
Right. Right. Now that means, guys, they're not in the game itself. They are literally just watching just their game streamed to Discord. That's all. All right.
But
Well,
when it
is there
get,
any?
especially there towards the end, like where
Hmm.
ships are trading back and forth, it just gets so hectic. Like if you're actually in the game playing a ship,
Mm-hmm.
you're getting fired on from 3 different ships or whatever. Like you start missing a lot of things.
That's right. You do.
Sort of standard procedure also is like if you're dead, you're watching, for example, battleship shots.
Mm-hmm.
If you're watching Montana, and if he starts turning his turrets to the other side of the map, like you start calling out, "Hey, cross shots are coming."
Right. From the Montana, watch out, and that at least tells people, okay, can the Montana shoot me? If so, I need to dodge or get behind cover. So, we did that all the time in clan battles too. It makes perfect sense. Okay. Well, Shall we move on to the next replay?
Sure.
Awesome. What we're going to do is I'm going to move to